Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that's shaking up not just the entertainment world, but the entire globe. Recently, one of the biggest stars of American pickers, Mike Wolfe, was handed a shocking sentence: life in prison. But the charges against him are enough to send chills down your spine. These allegations sound like the plot of a high-risk horror movie, smuggling artifacts across countries, hidden within evidence related to the death of a famous historian, and even manipulating the antique auction market. All of this amounts to tens of millions of dollars, while millions of fans are watching. But is Mike Wolfe truly the mastermind? Or is he just a victim of a dangerous system? If you find this story intriguing, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to uncover the hidden mysteries in today's video. Several major news outlets simultaneously reported that Mike Wolfe, the prominent face of the reality show American Pickers, has been sentenced to life in prison. The charges sound like the plot of a high-risk horror movie: international artifact smuggling, hidden in evidence related to the death of a famous historian, and manipulating the antique auction market. The value runs into tens of millions of dollars for millions of viewers. Mike Wolfe has always embodied the image of a heritage enthusiast, traveling across the U.S. to rediscover items with the soul of time. But the truth revealed in a 46-day trial painted a different picture: a cold, calculating man with secret ties to clandestine antique smuggling rings from the Middle East and Europe. The story began on June 17, 2023, when the police in Bloomington, Indiana, received a call from a neighbor reporting a strange smell coming from the basement of Professor Harold Clemens's house, a retired historian who had taught at the University of Chicago and specialized in Civil War artifacts. When authorities entered, they found Clemens dead, lying on his back, his right hand holding a small item: a silver pocket watch engraved with faint but still readable words, RK 1887, meaning honor, not glory. At first glance, it appeared to be the natural death of an elderly man living alone, but the watch was something that shouldn't have been there. Just a week later, the Savannah National Museum issued an internal memo that was quickly leaked. The watch had once been part of the Battlefield Heritage Collection, which had gone missing in 2019 during an unknown archival transfer. The incident was never made public. The museum feared a scandal until the item unexpectedly reappeared in the hands of a dead body. This information spread quickly on social media, but what truly ignited the situation came from an anonymous Reddit post. A user named GearGhost82 created a thread on the antique collecting subreddit. "I swear I saw this exact watch in an unaired episode of American Pickers when Mike visited a farm in Kentucky. It was in his palm, and he even said the watch tells stories." Within 48 hours, dozens of people came forward claiming they had seen the same item on the show, or at least a similar clip that had gone viral on YouTube in 2021, but was later deleted. Other users added, "I saw it displayed at Antique Archaeology in Nashville last year." In July 2023, the FBI quietly launched an investigation, working with the International Artifacts Smuggling Task Force. This operation, codenamed Rust Rail, primarily focused on determining whether Mike Wolfe was connected to an illegal federal and possibly international antique smuggling network. One of their initial leads came from an unpublished video of History Channel, leaked by a former employee. In the 14-minute footage, Mike Wolfe is seen negotiating to buy a military pocket watch from an unidentified man inside a warehouse near Paducah, Kentucky, owned by Elgin, a U.S. manufacturer. Mike's voice in the video says, "I know this piece has passed through the hands of an officer. It definitely has historical value. I won't ask you where you got it." What raised further suspicion was the not entirely non-existent link between Harold Clemens and Mike Wolfe. In 2017, Clemens briefly appeared at a televised regional history artifact seminar. In his introduction, he made a cryptic remark about some artifacts that should never be sold. They carry pain that no money can buy. An internal email from Clemens' computer, recovered after his death, revealed deeper suspicions. In a message to a close friend, he wrote, "I believe I've uncovered a chain of illegal transactions involving a famous TV personality. I'm considering whether to warn federal authorities." This email was sent 3 days before his death. Although authorities found no signs of assault, the autopsy report indicated a small bruise on the back of Clemens's head, possibly from a fall or impact before he lost consciousness. No one was prosecuted for his death, but from that point, the investigation changed direction. Mike Wolfe was officially placed under special federal surveillance. That small watch, once a minor detail, became the spark that brought the entire antique empire to face justice. Right after the silver pocket watch appeared next to Professor Harold Clemens's body, the federal investigation team began re-examining all aired episodes of American Pickers. While also issuing formal requests for internal records from History Channel and the production company, the FBI quickly discovered an anomaly. Between 2020 and 2023, over 40 items that Mike Wolfe and the film crew had bought never aired on television. Some were filmed with basic purchase receipts, but no clear records of where they went afterward, including the fateful pocket watch. The secret investigation, codenamed Rust Rail, referred to the trail of items buried in warehouse basements or even the underground cellars of antique shops. Initially, the investigation team could not directly access Mike Wolfe. Instead, they quietly tracked one of his backstage assistants, Craig Salinas, who acted as the driver and main logistics handler for the production team. During a nearly 6-hour surveillance session in southern Missouri, Salinas was recorded driving a truck labeled Antique Archaeology to an abandoned warehouse, a location not listed in any official records. Local police were asked to assist by posing as a construction safety inspection team. There, they saw a series of sealed wooden crates containing items from the 18th and 19th centuries, including at least 3 items identified by the FBI as stolen from a local museum in Georgia. A major breakthrough occurred when the investigation team obtained search warrants for 2 private storage facilities registered under a company called Time Vault Logistics LLC, a front company in which Mike Wolfe held shares through 3 layers of financial intermediaries. At the first warehouse in Ohio, many undocumented antiques were discovered, from Civil War pistols and torn handwritten manuscripts to a nearly 1-meter-tall Egyptian statue carefully stored in a shockproof crate. This statue, according to an internal report, matched a statue stolen from the Luxor Museum in Egypt in 2011. After tracing the money, The FBI discovered that Mike Wolfe owned at least 5 small companies established in tax havens like Biz Malta and the Cayman Islands from 2016 to 2023, with nearly $4.7 million being transferred between these companies via antique transactions. However, none of the transactions involved certified appraisers or reputable auction houses. Notably, a Swiss bank account under Wolfe's name received a $150,000 transfer from an individual connected to the underground antique market in Aleppo, Syria, which had previously been accused of serving as a hub for looted cultural artifacts during wartime. What stunned investigators was how Mike organized the entire operation. No official members of the crew were responsible for transporting goods after filming. Everything was handed off to third parties, with contracts signed via virtual fax apps and payments made in cash or cryptocurrency. The FBI decided to infiltrate the network by approaching an antique store that Wolfe had previously visited in New Mexico. An informal meeting between an undercover agent and Mike took place on the night of December 3rd. In an audio recording, Mike was heard saying that not every item should be shown on TV. Some things are for those who truly understand their value, not the audience. Right after this meeting, the FBI conducted emergency searches at 3 locations related to antique archaeology, including a secret warehouse in North Nashville, where they discovered a list of 17 encrypted handwritten documents listing artifacts along with black market price codes and transaction dates. You won't believe what they found. Like and subscribe to the channel to continue following this thrilling story. Alongside the list was a personal notebook belonging to Mike with a pencil-written note reading, "They'll never understand. This is about heritage, not money, but heritage cannot be an excuse to break the law." With so much evidence, including undocumented artifacts, shady accounts, and notes showing concealment, Mike Wolfe was officially named the primary suspect in what could become the biggest scandal in U.S. reality TV history. A tense trial and verdict for Mike took place on January 9th, 2025. Mike Wolfe's federal trial officially began in Chicago, with tightened security and reporters in attendance. Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered with signs reading, "Free Mike," still believing it was all just a misunderstanding. But what was revealed inside the courtroom left most in silence. The 39-page indictment listed 6 main charges, including the illegal transport of antiques, international cultural heritage trafficking, tax evasion, obstruction of justice, money laundering, and indirectly concealing evidence in a suspicious death. The proposed sentence was life in prison without the possibility of parole. The prosecutor began with a series of images and clips from previously unreleased videos, in which Mike Wolfe is seen negotiating shady deals at locations not officially recorded by the show. One of these showed Mike handing cash to a Syrian man at a garage in Detroit, in exchange for a small box containing unverified Roman coins. The prosecutor described this not as collecting antiques, but as a trade model built on illegal behavior, disguised through the lens of television. A devastating blow to Mike's defense came from the testimony of Frank Fritz, his former co-host for many seasons. After leaving the show, Frank agreed to testify, and his words silenced the courtroom. He said, "We used to promise we would only collect what was legal, but over time, everything changed. Mike became obsessed with things no one else had. He added, "To keep the show alive, we had to dig deeper, both literally and figuratively." Frank carefully recalled an incident in 2021 when they obtained a wartime diary in Arkansas. Mike later took it, and no one knew where it went. But weeks later, Frank saw a copy of that very diary on the black market, priced at 15 times its original value. The defense didn't offer a direct rebuttal to the physical evidence. Instead, they focused on portraying Mike as a man trapped in a system he couldn't control, claiming all transactions were handled by the logistics team and that Mike was an antique enthusiast, not a mastermind. Mike Wolfe remained silent for nearly the entire trial. His eyes were bleak, emotionless. On the 31st day of the trial, when asked if he wanted to speak to the jury, Mike stared directly at them and said, "I never considered myself a criminal. I just wanted to speak for what others discarded. If that makes me guilty, I accept it." That shocking statement was quoted in headlines, dividing public opinion between admiration and condemnation. On sentencing day, the judge took just over 4 minutes to read the verdict. Based on the volume of evidence, the level of organization, and the resulting consequences, especially the concealment of artifacts from international cultural theft, the court sentenced Mike Wolfe to life in prison without parole and terminated all ownership rights related to the ancient archaeology program and brand. In the gallery, an elderly man broke down in tears. He had been a loyal fan of the show for a decade. On fan pages across social media, he had praised Mike, but now that admiration was either fading or shifting to a memorial state. But one bigger question remained. If Mike was the mastermind, then who was behind it all? The empire collapsed, and after the shocks, just 3 days after Mike Wolfe was sentenced, History Channel officially announced the cancellation of American Pickers and removed all related content from its streaming platform. The once highly followed YouTube channel quietly deleted old videos. The website for ancient archaeology turned into a blank interface, with just one line reading, "Temporarily suspended." A name once associated with American television culture vanished so quickly that it almost seemed like it had never existed. The FBI sealed both the display locations in Iowa and Tennessee, which Mike had called sacred spaces for those passionate about the past. The secret warehouse in North Nashville, once used as an artifact collection center, was transferred to the Heritage Management Bureau. A month-long inventory revealed many items with forged paperwork, unclear provenance, and worse, some confirmed to be religious artifacts from conflict zones like Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Among them was a marble sculpture believed to belong to an Ottoman royal tomb stolen in 2003. The antique auction market temporarily froze. Major companies like Saab and Christie's issued statements reviewing all transactions indirectly related to Mike Wolfe. Several large transactions worth hundreds of thousands of dollars were canceled. Private collectors began fearing that items they had purchased through Mike might be seized at any time. Public opinion started to divide. Loyal fans believed Mike had been turned into a scapegoat for a long-standing system operating in the shadows of art, commerce, and politics. On platforms like X and Reddit, public debates analyzed inconsistencies in the investigation, suggesting that Mike might have accidentally uncovered information someone didn't want revealed. A detail continuing to fuel public debate was the list of 17 documents found in Mike's warehouse. Besides the coded transactions and artifact markings, the last page contained a handwritten note. Q7R3VTI. Analysts and conspiracy theorists rushed to decode it. Some believed it was an abbreviation for a secret organization involved in high-end artifact trafficking, possibly related to religious authorities. A popular theory claimed Vatic referred to the Vatican, a never officially acknowledged entity. Though there was no clear evidence, the presence of this code turned the story into something much more ambiguous, stretching beyond one man and one TV show. Another document released by the forensic investigation team was Mike Wolfe's personal notebook, with notes like Episode 312, Scene of the Old Truck Being Cut, or Tracking with the Leopard Skin Collection Holder. One page contained a single handwritten sentence: "They'll never understand." Not all of the past should be brought to light. This page was tightly folded and stuffed between unrelated papers, as if Mike had unintentionally wanted it to be found. At the federal prison in Truro, where Mike is serving his sentence, officials have denied all media access. An anonymous former associate revealed that he didn't speak to anyone, ate alone, went alone, and didn't make any special requests, as if he had accepted the sentence or had foreseen it. In March 2025, during a closed hearing, an FBI representative stated that individuals involved in the case were still under surveillance, implying that the investigation was ongoing. One of the unofficial individuals subpoenaed was the former program director at History Channel, who was responsible for reviewing the cut episodes. No one knows whether certain footage was deleted, edited, or intentionally buried. To understand why it all ended up this way, you have to go back to the beginning, before the cameras started rolling, before the million-dollar brand returned to where Mike Wolfe started. Mike Wolfe, the man behind the tragedy, was born in 1964 in Joliet, Illinois, into a poor working-class family, raised by a single mother with 2 siblings. They survived on second-hand items from neighbors. From a young age, Mike was captivated by things others discarded. While his friends collected baseball cards, young Doug Mike scoured schoolyard trash piles for broken radios, old bikes, anything with gears. His favorite saying in his early years was, "If people think it's worthless, it's worth keeping." In 2010, when American Pickers first aired on History Channel, Mike was in his 40s, but his eyes lit up when he saw a vintage license plate, still childlike. The show became a phenomenon. Alongside his partner, Frank Fritz, Mike drove thousands of miles across the U.S., energizing forgotten garages and barns to find treasures from the past. He was loved not only for his knowledge, but also for the respect he showed to sellers and his genuine passion for every item. But perhaps that passion went too far. A person who worked with Mike in the early years said that he didn't just collect objects, but also collected control over memories. As the show became more famous, the pressure to maintain viewership grew. Each item had to outshine the last, and to achieve that, Mike began seeking places no one was allowed to go: evidence lockers, black markets, suppliers from war-torn areas. No one knows exactly when the line was crossed, but one thing became clear. He was no longer just seeking what no one else wanted. He was chasing things that people were afraid to keep. Perhaps in Mike's mind, he was doing right by rescuing pieces of history from being forgotten, but the law doesn't work on personal ideals. Now, Mike Wolfe is prisoner number 4279 D54. The name that once represented American heritage has been erased from all public platforms. But deep inside, the question remains: was Mike Wolfe a man who exploited the past for profit, or the last person brave enough to preserve it despite the consequences? Mike Wolfe went from a man who traveled across America to collect memories to a national TV icon and ultimately a convicted criminal sentenced to life in prison. The story serves as a reminder that sometimes the line between passion and misconduct is thinner than we think, and the truth, no matter how deeply buried, will always find its way back to the light. Do you think about the sentence for Mike Wolfe? Is he a victim of the system or someone who has crossed the line of morality? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next exciting videos. See you next time. Mike Wolfe, the beloved star of American Pickers, met a shocking downfall after being sentenced in connection with the death of his longtime co-host, Frank Fritz. What was first thought to be stroke-related complications turned out to mask a dark and disturbing truth. Investigators uncovered that Fritz's death wasn't a natural tragedy, it was a calculated act. Wolfe, once celebrated for his passion and charm as a treasure-hunting collector, now stands disgraced, forced to face the consequences of a crime he tried to bury. Fritz's death marked more than the loss of a life. It signaled the collapse of a television icon. During the intense courtroom battle, Wolfe watched his fame and career crumble, ultimately receiving a life sentence with no chance of parole. His chilling final words, "Goodbye forever," echoed through the courtroom, sealing the fate of a man once adored by millions, now remembered as a fallen star and a betrayer. If this story opened your eyes to the importance of truth and justice, share this video now. Let's unite, raise our voices, and defend the values that truly matter. Don't stay silent in the face of lies and betrayal. Hit that share button to help spread awareness and stand up for what's right. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Thanks for watching. And remember, the truth always wins. Wolfe's calculated poisoning of his former business partner, a man who trusted him completely, stunned the public, with many calling it a horrifying betrayal. What fans once brushed off as on-screen drama to boost ratings has now unraveled into something far darker. Prosecutors are calling it a cold-blooded act of revenge, fueled by jealousy and greed, and Wolfe is now facing the full weight of those charges. However, social media reports suggest the initial charges were downgraded as more evidence came to light. One post claimed Wolfe was first taken into custody after a crew member from American Pickers led authorities to Fritz's home, where he was already found dead. A deep investigation by the Iowa State Police uncovered damning clues: Wolfe's fingerprints on a pill bottle and a string of unsettling text messages sent to Fritz, leading prosecutors to pursue a first-degree murder charge. The investigation into Fritz's death was triggered when the medical examiner noticed troubling discrepancies in his toxicology report. While the initial cause of death was listed as complications from his earlier stroke, the autopsy revealed dangerously high levels of prescription drugs, far beyond what had been prescribed. This set off alarm bells, especially since Fritz was known to be meticulous about sticking to his medication routine during recovery. The Iowa State Police quietly initiated an investigation, zeroing in on those who had interacted with Fritz in his final hours. What they uncovered surpassed even the most seasoned detectives' expectations. Security footage from Fritz's neighborhood revealed Wolfe's vehicle arriving late at night around 3 hours before emergency services were contacted. That night, it was Wolfe who made the 911 call, stating he had come to check on his old friend and found him unresponsive. When paramedics arrived, they found Fritz without a pulse, and despite their efforts, he was declared dead at the scene. At first, reports suggested that Fritz's death was linked to complications from his previous stroke, but the toxicology results soon told a different story. What truly set off the investigators' alarms, however, was Wolfe's reaction in the aftermath. Rather than grieving the loss of his longtime partner, Wolfe quickly moved to take control of Fritz's collection and intellectual property. Within just 48 hours of Fritz's death, Wolfe had already contacted Fritz's lawyers, pushing to acquire the rights to Fritz's name and image for future American Pickers merchandise. A production staff member testified that Wolfe wasted no time accessing Fritz's storage units, which held valuable antiques never featured on the show. Some crew members noted that Wolfe seemed unnervingly focused on business matters, showing little emotion after Fritz's death. When detectives searched Wolfe's home and office, they uncovered a hidden safe containing several unlabeled pill bottles, which, upon examination, were found to contain the same type of drugs present in Fritz's system. The most damning discovery came when investigators found a journal in Wolfe's duffel bag, filled with detailed entries about his mounting resentment toward Fritz. Some entries dated back years, becoming progressively more hostile. One entry, just weeks before Fritz's death, revealed Wolfe's seething anger. F thinks he can come back and steal half the attention again. He forgets that without me there would be no show. He has become a burden. The network is showing me there's only one way to save what I've built. During the 6-week trial, Wolfe sat in stunned silence beside his lawyers as the prosecution laid out evidence of how he had carefully orchestrated Fritz's murder. The jury was shown chilling details, including Wolfe's extensive research into undetectable poisons and methods for staging a death to appear as a natural cause. His internet search history revealed disturbing queries like, "Can stroke drug interactions be detected after death?" and "How to make someone's death look like a stroke complication." The prosecution argued that Wolfe had exploited Fritz's past health struggles, using them as the ideal cover for his murder. Former American Pickers crew members took the stand, recounting troubling shifts in the relationship between Wolfe and Fritz in the years before Fritz's departure from the show and eventual death. One production assistant testified that she overheard intense arguments between the two, with Wolfe insisting on full creative control over the show's future, tensions that seemed to signal a growing rift. Wolfe told Fritz that he had lost his equal payment rights because of his health issues, a claim confirmed by the assistant's testimony. Several witnesses described Wolfe becoming more controlling, often speaking ill of Fritz to network executives and pushing him away from longtime friends in the antiques community. The most emotional testimony came from Danielle, who, despite her personal hesitations, bravely stepped forward to testify for the prosecution, revealing intimate details about the toxic dynamics between Wolfe and Fritz. Fighting back tears, Danielle Colby recounted confronting Wolfe about his treatment of Fritz. "I saw how Mike became fixated on being the only face of American Pickers. When I asked him about making things right with Frank, he snapped, telling me to stay out of matters that weren't my business." Colby revealed finding unsettling notes in Wolfe's office detailing Fritz's medication schedule, prompting her to question Wolfe, who claimed he was just concerned about Frank's health. The defense tried to frame the relationship as one of a misunderstood friendship, insisting that Wolfe had genuinely attempted to reconcile with Fritz before his death. The defense brought network executives to testify, pointing to Wolfe's public statements about supporting Fritz's recovery. However, this narrative crumbled when Fritz's personal doctor took the stand. The doctor testified that while Fritz was indeed concerned about his health, he remained hopeful about his recovery and had even started planning to launch his own antiques business. More crucially, the doctor confirmed that he had never prescribed the high doses of drugs found in Fritz's system, further discrediting the defense's claims. During cross-examination, Wolfe's calm facade began to crumble. When directly asked if he had administered the drugs to Fritz, he erupted at the prosecutor. "You don't know what it's like to build something from scratch and watch someone else take all the credit, smiling for the cameras while everyone believes he's just as important to the success of the show." His outburst left the courtroom in stunned silence, prompting the defense to call for a recess. But by then, the damage was done. His raw emotion only deepened the suspicion surrounding his involvement. The jury later revealed that this moment was crucial in their deliberations, as it exposed the deep resentment Wolfe had carried for years following Fritz's departure from the show. The financial motive became undeniable when forensic accountants testified about suspicious shifts in Wolfe's business dealings. In the months before Fritz's death, Wolfe had secretly restructured his companies, ensuring he would control Fritz's intellectual property if he became incapacitated or passed away. If you believe in the power of truth and justice, help us spread this message far and wide. Every share brings us closer to a world where deception has no place. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep supporting us in delivering important stories. Together, we can drive change and protect the values that matter. Wolfe had also taken out a business insurance policy on Fritz, naming his company as the beneficiary of a $5 million payout. Prosecutors further revealed that Wolfe had established multiple shell companies, unbeknownst to Fritz, and funneled over $2 million worth of valuable antiques into these entities. After just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict. When the judge sentenced Wolfe to life in prison without the possibility of parole, the courtroom descended into chaos as the reality of his actions fully set in. Wolfe, who had maintained his composure throughout the trial, suddenly snapped. He leapt to his feet, screaming, "Don't you understand? He's going to destroy everything. He's going to destroy my legacy." In a fit of rage, he charged across the defense table, knocking over papers and a water cup. The bailiffs quickly moved in, but Wolfe broke free, lunging toward Fritz's family and swinging wildly before they could restrain him. Chaos erupted in the courtroom as people screamed and rushed for the exits. Wolfe managed to break free once more, grabbing a neck brace that had been introduced as evidence. He swung it like a weapon, striking one of the bailiffs in the shoulder before he was finally subdued. "I built American Pickers. It's my life's work," Wolfe screamed as 3 officers struggled to bring him down. The judge was swiftly evacuated from the courtroom as Wolfe continued to resist, kicking and shouting about betrayal while officers tried to restrain him. Fritz's sister, who was present at the sentencing, had to be escorted out by security when Wolfe lunged toward her. "I deserve this. It's my show," he yelled as they finally managed to cuff him, his outbursts echoing through the courtroom even as he was dragged away. The most shocking moment occurred when Wolfe locked eyes with Danielle Colby, sitting quietly in the courtroom, and screamed, "Tell them the truth! Tell them what Frank was really like!" Colby, visibly shaken, turned away, while other crew members struggled to hold back tears. The American Pickers family was shattered by the trial, with some standing by Wolfe and others testifying for the prosecution. Court documents revealed how Wolfe had systematically turned crew members against Fritz in the years leading up to his death, creating a deep divide within the production team, a rift that may never heal. As security struggled to restrain Wolfe, his rant grew more explosive. "He was going to start his own show," he yelled. "He told me I was outdated, that the network wanted him back." The courtroom descended into chaos, with reporters describing the scene as utter mayhem. At least 3 people were injured, including Wolfe's defense attorney, who was struck by a flying water bottle in the frenzy. The tension in the room was palpable, as Wolfe's outbursts added another layer of shock to an already dramatic trial. As they dragged him out of the courtroom, Wolfe continued to shout about betrayal and his legacy, insisting that Fritz had plotted to destroy him. Legal experts later noted that his violent outburst completely undermined his defense team's argument that he was a misunderstood businessman, incapable of violence. This emotional breakdown, they said, sealed any chance for a successful appeal, portraying him not as a victim, but as someone driven by unchecked rage and jealousy. In the days following his courtroom outburst, Wolfe's former friends and colleagues came forward with stories that painted a darker picture of his character. Thomas Reynolds, a former American Pickers producer, recalled how Wolfe would explode in anger behind the scenes whenever things didn't go his way. "He kept up this perfect down-to-earth image in front of the cameras," Reynolds said. "But off-camera, he could be terrifying, especially toward the lower-level staff. Once the cameras were off, his entire demeanor shifted." These revelations only deepened the public's understanding of the man behind the persona. Others have described Wolfe as becoming increasingly paranoid in recent years, convinced that Fritz was planning a comeback with a competing show. The case has sent shockwaves through the reality TV world. American Pickers, which once captivated millions of viewers globally, now faces an uncertain future. The History Channel has canceled all episodes featuring Wolfe and released a statement expressing shock and sympathy for the Fritz family. Several major sponsors have severed ties, and the show's future hangs in the balance, as its reputation is left in tatters. The Fritz family has taken legal action, filing for control of Frank's antique collection and intellectual property. They vowed to honor his legacy while pursuing a lawsuit against the network for enabling Wolfe's increasingly erratic behavior. Mental health experts have weighed in on the case, suggesting that years of being in the spotlight may have exacerbated Wolfe's narcissistic personality disorder, contributing to his destructive actions and sense of entitlement. Dr. Robert Keller, a forensic psychologist who closely followed the trial, explained, "While this doesn't justify his actions, it helps explain the stark contrast between his public persona and private behavior. People with narcissistic traits can come across as charming and composed while secretly harboring deep resentment and a thirst for revenge." Fritz's departure from the show would have been a significant blow to his narcissism, one that likely festered over time. Perhaps the most troubling aspect is how Wolfe used his platform as a television personality to manipulate public perception. In the weeks after Fritz's death, he took to social media, tearfully announcing that Fritz had passed due to complications from his stroke, all while releasing special merchandise in his memory. "This is not just a murder," Prosecutor Sarah Donovan stated in her closing arguments. "This is a calculated act of exploitation and deceit, using the public's trust to cover up his crime. This is a calculated deception aimed at millions of viewers who trusted him," Prosecutor Sarah Donovan continued. "He manipulated the public, mourning alongside them, all while being the man who killed his former partner and exploited their grief to line his own pockets." Investigators uncovered that over $1 million had been donated in the weeks following Fritz's death, with the majority of the funds funneled into accounts that only Wolfe had access to, further exposing his callous manipulation. As Mike Wolfe's life unraveled before the verdict, viewers and former supporters struggled to reconcile the image of a passionate antique collector with the reality of a man capable of murder and violence in court. Many felt deeply betrayed, not just by Wolfe's actions, but by the years of deceit he had perpetrated. "We invited him into our homes every week," said longtime American Pickers viewer Robert Jenkins. "We trusted his down-to-earth charm and passion for preservation. Finding out it was all a facade is truly devastating." Former television personalities who had worked alongside Wolfe quickly distanced themselves, releasing statements expressing shock and urging respect for Fritz's memory. The once beloved star of American Pickers was now a symbol of betrayal and manipulation, leaving a shattered legacy behind. For the American Pickers crew, the aftermath of the trial has been a continuing tragedy. Testimonies revealed a deeply divided production team, with some still holding on to the belief in Wolfe's innocence, while others were certain of his guilt. Danielle Colby, who courageously testified for the prosecution, took a leave of absence from television, stating the need for time to heal and reflect. In a brief statement, she requested privacy and expressed hope that the original mission of antique preservation, the passion that had brought them all together, could somehow survive these tragic events. Other crew members have remained largely out of the public eye, grappling with the dual trauma of losing Fritz and witnessing Wolfe's conviction for murder. The judge's final words before Wolfe's outburst seemed eerily prophetic. "Mr. Wolfe, you have presented yourself as a champion of American history and preservation, all while harboring thoughts of vengeance and murder. You used your platform to preach the values of the past, while secretly plotting to kill the man who helped build that very foundation." These words, ringing with irony, encapsulated the shocking betrayal at the heart of the case, leaving a lasting impact on those who had once believed in Wolfe's public persona. Today, justice is served, not only for Frank Fritz, but also for the millions of viewers who trusted you. With those words, Wolfe lunged across the table, igniting a violent outburst that would mark his final public appearance before being escorted away to spend the rest of his life behind bars. As the prison door slammed shut on Mike Wolfe, his final words in the courtroom lingered in the air. "Goodbye forever to all of you. The truth will be revealed one day." Those chilling words, dripping with defiance, echoed in the hearts of everyone present, a haunting reminder of the dark legacy he left behind. As the trial concluded and Mike Wolfe was convicted for the death of Frank Fritz, a dark chapter in television history came to a close. Fritz's death was not just the loss of a person, but a stark wake-up call about the true nature of those we once trusted. This story is not only about betrayal, but also a powerful reminder that justice will always prevail, no matter how challenging the path may be. With a life sentence, Mike Wolfe has paid for his criminal actions, but the scars he left behind for those around him will not fade easily. Meanwhile, Frank Fritz's legacy endures, embodying honesty, passion, and selfless dedication. Though the world of American Pickers has been forever changed, the spirit of preservation and the true values that Fritz stood for will always remain. Farewell, Frank Fritz. Justice has been served, and while the truth was harsh, it has finally been revealed. Remember, no matter how dark the shadows, the light of truth will always shine through. Mike Wolfe, the famous star of American Pickers, faced a tragic end when he was sentenced for the death of his longtime co-host, Frank Fritz. Fritz's death, initially believed to be due to complications from a stroke, uncovered a chilling secret when investigators revealed that it was not a natural accident, but a deliberate act. Mike Wolfe, who had once won the hearts of millions of viewers with his image as a passionate and enthusiastic collector, now had to pay the price for the crime he had hidden. Fritz's death was not just the end of a life, but also the fall of a television legend. In the tense trial, Wolfe not only lost all of his fame and career, but also faced a life sentence without the possibility of parole. "Goodbye forever," his final words echoed in the courtroom, marking the dark end for a man once beloved, who ultimately revealed himself to be a traitor. If you feel that this story is a powerful wake-up call for truth and justice, don't hesitate to share this video. Let's stand together, speak up, and protect the values of integrity that we believe in. Don't let deception and betrayal continue to be tolerated. Act today by sharing this video so everyone can become aware and fight for justice. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on other important stories. Thank you for watching, and remember, the truth always prevails. Wolfe's deliberate poisoning of his former business partner, someone who had complete trust in him, shocked many, with some even calling it a serious crime. While many fans believed the tension between the two pickers was just a stunt to boost viewership, Wolfe is now facing serious charges for what prosecutors describe as a revenge killing driven by jealousy and greed. However, social media reports indicate that the initial charges were downgraded as investigators gathered more evidence. One post revealed that Wolfe was initially arrested after a crew member from American Pickers led him to Fritz's house when he was already dead. The Iowa State Police conducted a thorough investigation and found incriminating evidence, including Wolfe's fingerprints on a pill bottle and suspicious text messages sent to Fritz, prompting them to pursue the first-degree murder charge. The investigation into Fritz's death began when the medical examiner noticed inconsistencies in his toxicology report. The official cause of death was initially attributed to complications from his previous stroke, but the autopsy results revealed that the prescription drug levels in Fritz's body far exceeded the prescribed amount for his condition. This immediately raised red flags, especially since Fritz had been very careful in following his medication regimen during his recovery. The Iowa State Police quietly launched an investigation, focusing on those who had been in contact with Fritz in his final hours. What they uncovered was even more shocking than what veteran detectives had anticipated. Security footage from Fritz's neighborhood showed Wolfe's vehicle arriving late at night, about 3 hours before emergency services were called. That night, it was Wolfe who dialed 911, claiming he had come to check on his old friend and found him unresponsive. When paramedics arrived, they found Fritz non-responsive with no pulse. Despite attempts at resuscitation, he was declared dead at the scene. Initial reports suggested that the cause of death was related to Fritz's previous stroke, but the toxicology results revealed otherwise. What particularly raised the investigators' suspicions was Wolfe's behavior immediately after Fritz's death. Instead of taking time to mourn, as one would expect, Wolfe quickly took action to assert control over Fritz's collection and intellectual property. Within 48 hours, he had contacted Fritz's lawyers about acquiring the rights to Fritz's name and image for future American Pickers merchandise. According to the testimony of a production staff member, Wolfe immediately took action to access Fritz's storage locations containing valuable antiques that had never appeared on the show. Some crew members reported that Wolfe appeared unusually focused and was not particularly grieving when discussing business matters right after Fritz's death. When detectives searched Wolfe's home and office, they discovered a hidden safe containing several unlabeled pill bottles, which were later identified as containing the same type of drugs found in Fritz's system. The most condemning discovery was a journal found in Wolfe's duffel bag, in which he wrote extensively about his growing resentment toward Fritz. Some entries were from years prior, with increasingly hostile language. In one entry just weeks before Fritz's death, Wolfe wrote, "F thinks he can come back and steal half the attention again. He forgets that without me there would be no show. He has become a burden. The network is showing me there's only one way to save what I've built." Throughout the 6-week trial, Wolfe appeared stunned as he sat quietly beside his lawyers while the prosecution presented evidence of how he had methodically planned Fritz's murder. The jury heard evidence showing that he had researched undetectable poisons and methods to make a murder appear as a natural cause. His internet search history revealed queries such as, "Can stroke-drug interactions be detected after death?" and "How to make someone's death look like a stroke complication." The prosecution argued that Wolfe exploited Fritz's previous health issues, using them as the perfect cover for murder. Former American Pickers crew members testified about witnessing troubling changes in the relationship between Wolfe and Fritz in the years leading up to Fritz's departure from the show and his subsequent death. A production assistant testified that she overheard heated arguments about the future direction of the show, with Wolfe demanding full creative control. He told Frank that he had lost his equal payment rights due to his health issues. The assistant testified to this. Several witnesses described Wolfe becoming increasingly controlling, frequently bad-mouthing Fritz to network executives, and isolating him from longtime friends in the antiques community. Perhaps the most emotional testimony came from Danielle, who reluctantly stepped forward to testify for the prosecution. Fighting back tears, she described confronting Wolfe about his behavior toward Fritz. "I noticed Mike had become obsessed with being the sole face of American Pickers. When I asked him about making amends with Frank, he became defensive and angry, telling me to stop interfering in things that weren't my concern." Colby described finding disturbing notes in Wolfe's office about Fritz's medication schedule and questioning Wolfe, who claimed he was only concerned about Frank's health. The defense attorneys tried to paint a picture of a misunderstood friendship, suggesting that Wolfe had genuinely tried to reconcile with Fritz before his death. They brought network executives to testify about Wolfe's public statements supporting Fritz's recovery. However, this theory was seriously undermined by the testimony of Fritz's personal doctor, who stated that while Fritz was concerned about his health, he remained optimistic about his recovery and had plans to start his own antiques business. The doctor also confirmed that he had never prescribed the drugs found in Fritz's system at such high doses. During cross-examination, Wolfe's carefully maintained composure began to crack. When asked directly if he had given Fritz the drugs, he snapped at the prosecutor, "You don't know what it's like to build something from nothing and watch someone else take the credit, smiling in front of the cameras while everyone thinks he's just as important to the success of the show." His outburst caused the defense team to request a recess, but the damage had already been done. The jury later reported that this moment was pivotal in their deliberations, as it revealed the lingering resentment Wolfe had harbored for years after Fritz left the show. The financial motive became clear when forensic accountants testified about suspicious changes in Wolfe's business structure. In the months leading up to Fritz's death, Wolfe had quietly restructured his companies to take control of Fritz's intellectual property in the event that he became incapacitated or passed away. If you believe in the power of truth and justice, join us in spreading this message to as many people as possible. Every action, every share from you helps create a stronger community where deception cannot thrive. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support us in continuing to share important stories. Together, we can create change and protect the values that matter. Thank you for standing with us, and be sure to keep following so you don't miss other meaningful videos. He had also purchased a business insurance policy for Fritz, making his company the beneficiary of a $5 million payout. Additionally, prosecutors revealed that Wolfe had set up several shell companies that Fritz was unaware of and had transferred valuable antiques into these entities, totaling over $2 million in assets. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict. When the judge announced a life sentence without the possibility of parole, everything completely spiraled out of control. Wolfe, who had remained calm throughout the trial, suddenly leapt up and shouted, "Don't you understand? He's going to destroy everything. He's going to destroy my legacy." He charged across the defense table, knocking over stacks of papers and a water cup. The bailiffs rushed toward him, but he lunged toward Fritz's family, swinging wildly before they could restrain him. The courtroom erupted into chaos as people screamed and rushed toward the exits while Wolfe managed to break free again. This time, he grabbed a neck brace that had been introduced as evidence and swung it like a weapon, hitting one of the bailiffs in the shoulder. "I built American Pickers. It's my life's work," he screamed as 3 other officers wrestled him to the ground. The judge was evacuated from the courtroom as Wolfe continued to resist violently, kicking and shouting about betrayal as officers tried to subdue him. Fritz's sister, who was present at the sentencing, had to be escorted out by security when Wolfe attempted to charge toward her. "I deserve this! It's my show!" he yelled, as they finally managed to handcuff him. The most shocking moment came when Wolfe locked eyes with Danielle Colby, who was sitting in the courtroom, and shouted, "Tell them the truth! Tell them what Frank was really like!" Colby turned away, clearly distressed, while other crew members broke down in tears. The American Pickers family was torn apart by the trial, with some supporting Wolfe, while others testified for the prosecution. Court documents revealed that Wolfe had systematically turned crew members against Fritz in the years leading up to his death, creating a deep rift in the production team that may never heal. As security personnel struggled to control Wolfe, he continued his tirade, revealing even more shocking details. "He was going to start his own show," he shouted. "He told me I was outdated, that the network wanted him back." Reporters in the courtroom described the scene as chaotic, with at least 3 people injured, including Wolfe's defense attorney, who was struck by a flying water bottle. Even as they dragged him out of the courtroom, he continued shouting about betrayal and his legacy, claiming that Fritz had planned to destroy him. Legal experts later commented that his violent outburst destroyed any chance of a successful appeal, as it contradicted his defense team's argument that he was a misunderstood businessman, incapable of using violence. In the days following the courtroom outburst, Wolfe's former friends and colleagues shared stories that shed light on his character. Former American Pickers producer Thomas Reynolds described instances where Wolfe would erupt in anger behind the scenes when things didn't go his way. "He maintained this perfect down-to-earth image in front of the cameras," Reynolds said. "But off-camera, he could become terrifying, especially toward lower-level staff. When the cameras stopped rolling, his entire attitude would change." Others have described him as increasingly paranoid in recent years, believing that Fritz was plotting to return to television with a competing show. The case has sent shockwaves through the reality TV community. American Pickers, which has reached millions of viewers worldwide, is now facing an uncertain future. The History Channel has canceled all episodes featuring Wolfe and issued a statement expressing shock and sympathy for the Fritz family. Several major sponsors have pulled their support, and the future of the show remains in doubt. The Fritz family has filed for control of his antique collection and intellectual property, promising to honor his legacy while pursuing legal action against the network for allowing Wolfe's increasingly erratic behavior. Mental health experts have analyzed the case, suggesting that Wolfe may have developed a more severe narcissistic personality disorder due to years of being in the spotlight. Dr. Robert Keller, a forensic psychologist who followed the trial, explained, "While this does not excuse his behavior, it helps explain the discrepancy between his public persona and his private actions. People with narcissistic traits can appear charming and composed while harboring intense resentment and a desire for revenge. Fritz's departure from the show would have been a long-lasting blow to his narcissism. Perhaps the most concerning thing is how Wolfe uses his platform as a television personality to manipulate public perception." In the weeks following Fritz's death, he took to social media, tearfully sharing the news of Fritz's passing due to complications from his stroke, and seized the opportunity to release special merchandise in memory of Fritz. "This is not just a murder," prosecutor Sarah Donovan said in her closing arguments. "This is a calculated deception aimed at millions of viewers who trusted him, mourning alongside a man who killed his former spouse and is exploiting their grief to enrich himself." Investigators discovered that over $1 million was donated in the weeks following Fritz's death, with most of the funds transferred into accounts that only Wolfe had access to. When Mike Wolfe began his life before the verdict, viewers and former supporters had to reconcile the image of a passionate antique collector with the reality of a man capable of murder and violence in court. Many expressed feelings of betrayal, not just by Wolfe's actions but by years of deception. "We invited him into our homes every week," said longtime American Pickers viewer Robert Jenkins. "We trusted his down-to-earth charm and passion for preservation. Finding out it was all a facade is truly devastating." Former television personalities who had appeared alongside Wolfe distanced themselves, with statements expressing shock and calling for respect for Fritz's memory. For the American Pickers crew, the tragedy continues to unfold. Testimonies during the trial revealed a deeply divided production process, with some believing in Wolfe's innocence while others were convinced of his guilt. Danielle, Colby, who testified for the prosecution, took a leave of absence from television, citing the need to heal and reflect. In a brief statement, she requested privacy and expressed hope that the original legacy of antique preservation, which had brought them all together, could continue despite these tragic circumstances. Other crew members have largely stayed out of the public eye as they struggle with the dual trauma of losing Fritz and witnessing Wolfe being convicted of murder. The judge's final comment before Wolfe erupted in rage seemed especially prophetic. "Mr. Wolfe, you have presented yourself as a champion of American history and preservation while harboring thoughts of vengeance and murder. You used your platform to preach the values of the past, while plotting to kill the man who helped build that very foundation." Today, justice is served not only for Frank Fritz, but also for the millions of viewers who trusted you. At this moment, Wolfe lunged across the table, beginning a violent outburst that would become his last public appearance before being taken away to spend the rest of his life behind bars. As the prison door closed on Mike Wolfe, his final words in the courtroom continued to echo. "Goodbye forever to all of you. The truth will be revealed one day." As the trial ended and Mike Wolfe was convicted for the death of Frank Fritz, a dark chapter in television history closed. Fritz's death was not just the loss of a person, but a wake-up call for all of us about the true nature of those we once trusted. This story is not just about betrayal, but also a reminder that justice will ultimately prevail, no matter how difficult the journey. With a life sentence, Mike Wolfe has paid for his criminal actions, but the pain he left behind for those around him will not fade easily. At the same time, Frank Fritz's legacy will live on, symbolizing honesty, passion, and selfless dedication. Though the world of American pickers has been forever changed, the spirit of preservation and the true values Fritz stood for will always endure. Farewell, Frank Fritz. Justice has been served, and the truth, though harsh, has finally been revealed. Remember, no matter how dark the shadows, the light of truth will always shine through. Mike Wolfe, one of the creators of American Pickers, has faced significant consequences following the heartbreaking loss of his longtime partner, Frank Fritz. Their relationship wasn't just professional, but a deep friendship that spanned many years. However, after this event, Mike was sentenced and confronted with unexpected challenges. In this video, we will uncover details never before revealed about this incident and explore the repercussions Mike Wolfe is currently facing. Stay tuned to learn more about the deep friendship between Mike and Frank, as well as the challenges Mike faces after the loss of his dear friend. This story not only touches the hearts of viewers, but also makes us reflect on loss and change in life. Don't take your eyes off the screen. Join me as we uncover the secrets never before revealed about Mike and Frank's story. If you want to learn more, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to catch the next video. For the past 13 years, Mike Wolfe has become a household name on American Pickers, the popular treasure hunting show on the History Channel. Their long journey of searching for valuable antiques brought Wolfe and his partner Frank Fritz to the big screen, creating a familiar image for millions of fans. However, everything changed suddenly when Wolfe was sentenced to life in prison, a shocking event that left both the television industry and fans stunned. Fritz's death marked the end of a chapter, and it also sparked a chilling investigation into the dark secrets hidden behind the spotlight. Immediately after Fritz's passing, Wolfe posted a tribute on Instagram expressing his grief and respect for his longtime friend. "I am heartbroken to hear about Frank's passing. I've known Frank for more than half my life, and what you see on TV is exactly what we had in real life. He was a special person. Rest in peace, my friend," Wolfe wrote. However, those heartfelt words became questionable when an investigation uncovered the horrifying truth behind Fritz's death. Initially, Fritz's death was attributed to complications from a stroke. However, upon further investigation, a shocking discovery changed everything. An empty pill bottle was found in Fritz's home, with faint fingerprints of Mike Wolfe on it. This raised suspicions among investigators that Fritz's death may not have been natural, but rather a sign of a deliberate murder. Prosecutors conducted a thorough investigation, including reviewing Fritz's medical records, and discovered a fentanyl concentration in his system, a potent opioid painkiller. This was highly unusual, as fentanyl was not prescribed to Fritz. This raised serious questions about his death. Based on the evidence and testimonies from witnesses, including text messages from Wolfe to Fritz, prosecutors concluded that this was not an accidental overdose, but a deliberate murder. As the investigation deepened, details about the lives and relationship between Wolfe and Fritz began to emerge. Many believed that a conflict between the two might have led Wolfe to murder Fritz. Prosecutors argued that this was a motive-driven killing, fueled by jealousy and ambition, with the goal of increasing viewership for American pickers. Data from Wolfe's phone revealed searches for information on hard-to-detect poisons and methods to simulate a stroke-like death, further strengthening suspicions of a carefully planned conspiracy. This case has not only shocked the American Pickers fan community, but also stands as a great tragedy, where a beloved show built on friendship and collaboration was shattered by crime and betrayal. Frank Fritz's death is no longer just a sad story, but a lesson about betrayal in the world of showbiz and the dark sides hidden behind the spotlight. After Frank Fritz's passing, the incident initially seemed like a natural death due to complications from a stroke. However, the investigation slowly revealed unbelievable details, raising suspicions about the truth behind his death. Investigators quickly realized that Mike Wolfe, Fritz's longtime partner on American Pickers, could be the primary suspect in the case. One of the most crucial details in the investigation was the emergency call Mike Wolfe made when he found Fritz lying motionless. Initially, this call seemed like a sign of concern, but upon closer examination, many doubts began to arise. Wolfe reported that Fritz was lying motionless and appeared to be in distress. However, when police and medical personnel arrived at the scene, Wolfe's actions didn't reflect someone grieving the loss of a friend. While reports indicated he cried, his strange behavior and quick attempt to control Fritz's assets just hours after his death raised suspicions. Mike Wolfe, who had been closely acquainted with Fritz for years, likely knew all too well about his health history. Fritz had previously suffered a stroke and had heart issues, making the use of fentanyl, a powerful painkiller, a fitting choice to conceal the truth about his death. Fentanyl could make Fritz's death appear as a result of a stroke relapse, rather than a deliberate murder. Details about Fritz's position when found and other discoveries seemed carefully staged to reinforce the theory of a natural death. Immediately after Fritz's passing, Wolfe seemed to act quickly to seize his late friend's assets. Within 48 hours, he contacted a lawyer to discuss the rights to Fritz's name and image, intending to use them for future commercial projects. This raised suspicions about Wolfe's true motives. Furthermore, when Fritz's will was revealed, a major shock occurred. Nearly $6 million of Fritz's estate was left to Wolfe, causing outrage among Fritz's family and friends. Fritz's father, William Fritz, filed a lawsuit to challenge the validity of the will, claiming his son was not mentally capable of signing it, especially given his declining health. Things became even more complicated when prosecutors discovered that Wolfe had repeatedly searched for information on how to use hard-to-detect poisons and methods to simulate death in his internet history. This further fueled suspicions that Fritz's death was carefully staged and meticulously planned. Wolfe's quick actions to control Fritz's assets and commercial projects immediately after his passing raised doubts, leading many to believe that, with the help of fentanyl and careful calculation, Wolfe had orchestrated the death of his longtime partner. This case is not just a story of betrayed friendship, but also a lesson in greed and manipulation. Wolfe crafted a web of evidence and events to support the theory of a natural death, but his swift actions to seize Fritz's assets only exposed the truth of what really happened. As the investigation unfolded, the harsh reality became clear. Frank Fritz's death was not an accident, but a carefully planned conspiracy orchestrated by his longtime partner. The investigation into Frank Fritz's death uncovered a chilling and haunting picture of ambition, jealousy, and a meticulously orchestrated criminal plan. Although Fritz's death was initially attributed to complications from a stroke, new evidence shattered this false narrative. A series of strange events and unsettling clues, from Mike Wolfe's suspicious internet searches to journal entries revealing his obsessive thoughts and determination to eliminate Fritz, unveiled the dark motives behind Wolfe's actions. Evidence surfaced as the investigation delved deeper. A secret safe at Wolfe's home and office was discovered, containing unlabeled pill bottles. When detectives tested the substances inside, the results revealed they matched fentanyl, the powerful painkiller found in Fritz's system. This shocked the public, as all signs pointed to Fritz's death not being an accident, but rather a deliberate murder. Wolfe's personal journal entries provided further suspicious details, revealing a buildup of anger and jealousy toward Fritz. One entry, written just weeks before Fritz's death, contained the chilling line, "Without me, this show wouldn't exist. He's become a burden, and now there's only one way to protect what I've built." These words weren't just the frustration of a colleague. They were a clear sign of a carefully calculated criminal plot. Wolfe didn't simply feel annoyed, but saw Fritz as an obstacle that needed to be removed to achieve his personal goals. Immediately after Fritz's death, Wolfe's actions raised even more suspicion. Not only did he attempt to control Fritz's assets, but he also initiated legal efforts to seize the intellectual property rights of American pickers. This move not only showed his greed, but also proved that Wolfe had a premeditated plan in place all along. Wolfe's emergency call, in which he appeared frantic upon discovering Fritz motionless, seemed to come from genuine worry and concern. However, as investigators delved deeper, inconsistencies in Wolfe's testimony raised doubts about his true motives. One crucial detail was security camera footage showing Wolfe's car at Fritz's house just hours before the 911 call was made. This completely contradicted Wolfe's claim that he found Fritz already unconscious. The trial lasted for 6 weeks, capturing attention across the United States. Prosecutors built a solid case based on an undeniable array of evidence. Discoveries about the fentanyl, Wolfe's online searches for murder methods, and journal entries revealing his anger toward Fritz painted a clear picture of Wolfe's greed and meticulous planning. Medical experts confirmed that the fentanyl levels in Fritz's system were far too high, beyond a safe threshold, and could not have been self-administered. This firmly established that Fritz's death was not an accident, but a premeditated murder. In the end, with undeniable evidence and clear criminal actions, Mike Wolfe was convicted of murder. This case not only exposed a dark conspiracy, but also served as a stark reminder of greed and betrayal in what seemed to be a close, long-standing friendship between two former partners. Frank Fritz's death was not a random accident, but a premeditated crime, carefully orchestrated by his longtime partner, Mike Wolfe. Initially believed to be caused by a stroke, new evidence revealed the truth behind Fritz's death. This not only exposed the hatred and jealousy Wolfe had harbored for years, but also revealed how he exploited Fritz's health to seize control of American pickers. Witnessing the story of Mike and Frank shows us the price of pursuing power, leading to horrifying plots and unimaginable crimes. What are your thoughts on this story? Let us know in the comments. If you have a different perspective, feel free to share with us. Want to hear more about another story? Just tell us. One of the key points in the case was the presence of fentanyl in Fritz's system. This drug, not prescribed to Fritz, was used to create a perfect cover for his death. Doctors testified that although Fritz had a history of heart disease and stroke, he remained optimistic about his recovery and had plans to open an antique shop. This showed that Fritz not only survived health issues, but also intended to continue his work, completely contradicting what Wolfe wanted others to believe. Evidence from witnesses and collected documents shattered Wolfe's defense. A production assistant from American Pickers revealed that she had witnessed heated arguments between Wolfe and Fritz over control of the show. According to her testimony, Wolfe expressed anger and frustration as Fritz's health deteriorated, no longer being able to participate as before. Danielle Colby, a cast member, also testified that Wolfe became increasingly obsessed with being the sole face of the show and warned her not to get involved in matters concerning Fritz. What was surprising wasn't just Wolfe's ruthlessness, but also his clear financial motive. Forensic accountants testified that before Fritz's death, Wolfe had quietly restructured his business to seize control of Fritz's intellectual property, preparing for a situation where Fritz could no longer participate in their work. This not only proved that Wolfe had a strong motive to eliminate Fritz, but also strengthened the argument that Fritz's death was part of a calculated plan to take ownership of his assets. Throughout the trial, Wolfe's attitude and behavior became increasingly suspicious. A key moment in the proceedings came when Wolfe erupted in anger while being questioned about his motives. Although he had remained calm for most of the trial, this outburst exposed the resentment and jealousy Wolfe had harbored for years, which ultimately shifted the course of the trial. The jury recognized that it was Wolfe's own fury that revealed what he had long kept hidden: his hatred for Fritz and his insatiable greed. Ultimately, the strong evidence of financial motive, meticulously planned criminal actions, and inconsistencies in Wolfe's testimony led to a verdict in favor of justice. Mike Wolfe was convicted of murder and received a fitting sentence for the brutal actions he took to eliminate Fritz and seize control of American Pickers. Mike Wolfe, the creator and host of American Pickers, had a successful career and was a familiar face on television. However, his life was completely upended when the dark side of his relationship with longtime partner Frank Fritz was exposed. Shocking details about Wolfe's motives and actions left millions unable to believe the truth about the person they once admired. The life sentence without parole for Wolfe marked the conclusion of the brutal crime he had committed. The cause of Fritz's death was not a stroke, but a premeditated murder. Evidence confirmed that Wolfe deliberately used the opioid painkiller fentanyl to make Fritz's death appear as an accident due to poor health. Wolfe himself was the only one who stood to gain financially from Fritz's death. Before Fritz passed away, Wolfe had signed a $5 million life insurance policy and restructured the business to seize control of Fritz's intellectual property. Prosecutors also revealed that Wolfe had secretly transferred over $2 million worth of rare antiques into shell companies. The relationship between Wolfe and Fritz, initially built on collaboration and shared passion, gradually became strained as Fritz faced serious health issues. Fritz dealt with heart problems and back issues, which prevented him from continuing to participate in the show as he had before. Meanwhile, Wolfe began to take control of every aspect of the program, and there were reports suggesting that he isolated Fritz from the show's operations, even speaking negatively about him to the executives at the History Channel. This made Fritz feel excluded and unfairly treated. Witnesses, including Danielle Colby, who co-hosted the show with Wolfe, revealed shocking details about the relationship between the two. Colby recalled that Wolfe became increasingly obsessed with being the sole face of American Pickers and warned her not to get involved in Fritz's issues. Several other production assistants confirmed that Wolfe not only pressured Fritz, but also tried to remove him from the show. Wolfe's personal journals also revealed his intense anger and ambition toward Fritz, indicating that this was not a random killing, but a calculated act to eliminate a partner who had become an obstacle. Throughout the trial, Wolfe maintained a calm exterior, but as the verdict was read, he lost control of his emotions. Upon being sentenced, he shouted, swung his walking stick, and attacked one of the officers. The life of one of the most well-known figures in reality TV was completely upended, as his rage and hatred were exposed. Wolfe's final words before being taken to prison left a lasting impression, and his remarks not only reflected his despair, but also served as the last act of a master manipulator. Mike Wolfe, once the creator of American Pickers, a popular TV show, ultimately became a criminal due to greed, jealousy, and ruthless actions. Frank Fritz's death was not only the loss of a friend, but also a warning to everyone about the dangers of unchecked ambition and power. The story of Wolfe and Fritz is a heartbreaking tragedy, exposing manipulation and the exploitation of power in an industry rife with deception and betrayal. The story of Mike Wolfe, Frank Fritz, and American Pickers was not only a criminal case, but also a huge shock to the television community and fans of the show. The image of a reality TV series that once seemed like simple adventures in antique hunting is now tainted by crime, betrayal, and insatiable greed. Mike Wolfe, once the face of American Pickers, is now sentenced to life in prison for the premeditated murder of his longtime partner, Frank Fritz. Fritz's death, initially believed to be from a stroke, was revealed to be the result of a meticulous plan carried out by Wolfe. Exploiting Fritz's health condition, Wolfe used the opioid poison fentanyl to make Fritz's death appear as a natural occurrence. After the case was made public, the History Channel removed all episodes featuring Wolfe, and several major sponsors pulled their support from the show, leaving the future of American Pickers uncertain. Longtime fans were shocked and felt betrayed upon learning that the person they had trusted and admired was actually the mastermind behind Fritz's death. The investigations not only revealed Wolfe's financial motive, but also highlighted his manipulative and deceptive actions following Fritz's death. Wolfe publicly expressed his regret on social media, but at the same time, he exploited the situation to promote memorial products. This led prosecutor Sarah Donovan to assert that the case was not only a criminal act, but also a deliberate act of deception. Although American Pickers was once a symbol in the reality TV industry, Mike Wolfe's legacy is now permanently tarnished. Fans and colleagues were stunned by his betrayal of Fritz, who had contributed so much to the success of the show. Danielle Colby, a co-host, spoke out about Wolfe's actions and announced a hiatus from her career following these tragic events. She expressed hope that Fritz's spirit of antique preservation would continue to live on, even though American Pickers would never be the same. And so the story of Mike Wolfe and the passing of Frank Fritz marks the end of an emotional chapter in the history of American Pickers. This story is not just a bittersweet farewell, but also a deep longing for the memories and moments shared between two longtime partners. Despite the hardships and challenges, their friendship and the legacy they built together remain undeniable. If you found this video touching and meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on more deep and interesting stories. Share your thoughts about Mike and Frank's journey in the comments below.